I'm going to quote independent research, Mr. Speaker, of the Canadian Climate Institute, which finds that the impact of the...
We've got a wild house session. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got Mark Carney getting brutally humiliated by Pierre. Pierre just mops the floor with the guy. Carney tries to use some hocus pocus data to support his fact. Pierre is not playing these games. Carney's smugness and arrogance gets thrown right back in his face. Let's jump into this.
Mr. Speaker, today the Prime Minister and I will meet to discuss the 10th Liberal budget deficit. Our priority as Conservatives is an affordable budget for an affordable cost of living for the Canadian people. The Prime Minister promised he would spend less, but his deficit spending is 100% more. He promised he'd be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Well, they're now rising at 2 times the Bank of Canada's target, and inflation is now once again out of control. Will the Prime Minister learn from the inflationary, costly failures of the 10 years of Liberal government and accept our plan for an affordable budget for an affordable life?
Mr. Speaker, this budget will get operational spending under control. It will balance our spending over the next 3 years. But we're not going to stop there. We are going to invest in this country. We're going to have the biggest investment in this country in generations, the largest capital spend in generations, the most ambitious trade diversification in our nation's history. We will do everything to help Canadians get ahead, as they have gotten ahead every single month since I became Prime Minister.
Wow, tell that to the workers of Stellantis, tell that to the workers of GM Ingersoll, tell that to the workers of the Crown Royal plant that moved to America.
Canadians, according to this Prime Minister, have never had it so good. If you're that single mother out there walking down the grocery aisle, looking at prices rise before your eyes, if you're that senior choosing between eating and heating, if you're one of the countless Canadians who see that roasted coffee is up 41% since the Prime Minister took office, that nuts and seeds up 15%, that food price inflation is now double the target, or if you're one of those 2 million people that are lined up at food banks every single month, the Prime Minister says you've never had it so good. How is it possible for this Prime Minister to be so costly and so out of touch with reality?
Here, here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, it's time once again for our economic lesson.
He needs it.
Getting ahead means your wages grow faster than inflation. Let's look at the relationship between inflation and deficits. The inflation rate in Canada, the food inflation rate, is the G7 average, and we have the lowest deficit in the G7. What the government is going to do is use that deficit to grow this economy like it's never seen before.
Here, here, well done.
Well, thanks for the economic lesson there, Carney. Once again, the Liberals are trying to trick Canadians. Chrystia Freeland did this. Mark Carney did this. We can see Justin Trudeau's rampant spending here. So with Carney saying we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, that's using some creative numbers. That's not an honest statement. As we see from this article here from the Fraser Institute, there's a problem with net debt, the measure the government uses. So when Mark Carney makes that statement, he's talking about net debt, not gross debt. So he's using other money the government has to offset that debt to make it look better. As this article points out here, that would be the Canada Pension Plan and the Quebec Pension Plan, CPP and QPP. And as of 2023, this article, it was $654 billion. Now, having this visualized, we have this right off of Scotiabank's website here, gross debt versus net debt. This is the one Mark Carney's talking about. So he's saying, yeah, Canada, this red line, we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, if you include the pension plan money. But you can't use that money to pay off the debt, so it shouldn't be included. Of course, this is a clever trick used to trick Canadians. Now, if you look at the gross debt, the red line here, Canada, is much further higher up now. We're no longer at the bottom. We've got a visualization of that here. This only goes to 2012, but it gives you an idea. So the gross debt would be this dotted line, which is much higher if you remove the CPP and QPP money. So in reality, this is our gross debt to GDP ratio. Now, unfortunately, this website doesn't have net debt numbers on here, but we have this article from the Fraser Institute, which illustrates it here. So here's Canada net GDP to debt ratio as of 2024, putting us near at the bottom. But once again, if we remove the CPP and QPP, where does it put Canada? Way up here, near the top. He shouldn't be using net debt because you can't use CPP money to pay off the debt. This is very clever use of language to trick Canadians. It's dishonest.
So the Prime Minister says to that single mother that small business owner, that senior I just referenced out there, that he needs to give you economic lessons. You are the one out there who are watching prices rise right before. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is now lecturing Canadians who are lined up at food banks, telling them that they've never had it so good. That's right. That if only they appreciated all the many promises that he's made, promises that he hasn't even begun to keep, that they would then be appreciative of the fact that here we have fresh and frozen beef is up 14%, fresh and frozen cut chucks up 12%, frozen meats up 11%, coffee grains up 40%. Does he believe that people paying these exorbitant prices should be thankful for his economic lessons?
The right honourable.
Mr. Speaker, we promised to cut taxes for every Canadian. 22 million Canadians have their taxes cut. We promised to cut taxes
That tax cut is pathetic, man. It's like $40 a month. It's nothing.
on first-time home builders. They've been cut. We promised to cut the carbon tax.
Cut taxes on first-time home builders? I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Taxes on first-time home builders. They've been cut. We promised to cut the carbon tax. It's been cut. You weren't here. It's been cut. It's been cut. And we
Look at them having a laugh here. Canadians living in tents, have a laugh.
promised to build this country strong. November 4th, this House will have a choice. Are you with us for those single mothers? Are you with us for those farmers? Are you with us to build this country strong so they can get ahead?
That's a very good.
Yeah, all the barking seals are comes down to Mark Carney's a charlatan. If the average Canadian knew that Mark Carney was using us to get rich, they wouldn't vote for him. That's the truth of it. I should note too, I am uploading on Facebook and Spotify now, trying to get the message out more, and those numbers are growing quickly. So, but in the grand scheme of things, the average person is going to watch CBC, mainstream media. They have to get the message directly from Pierre.
Mr. Speaker, I think he meant to say, are you with us for the bankers and bondholders who will be collecting record interest payments on the newly doubled national debt? The Prime Minister has literally doubled the deficits that he inherited from the Liberal government, deficits that were already exorbitant and out of control. And what do you know? Inflation immediately started to rise. 2 of the 4 measures are outside of the acceptable Bank of Canada range. All 4 measures are above the Bank of Canada's 2% target. The more he spends, the more things cost. Does he acknowledge at least that every dollar he spends comes out of the pockets of hardworking Canadians?
The right.
Mr. Speaker, we are putting more dollars in the pockets of hardworking Canadians because we cut taxes on 22 million for 22 million Canadians. Mr. Speaker, our focus is putting even more dollars in the pockets of hardworking Canadians. That is why we will have the most ambitious capital investment program this country's ever seen, the most ambitious home building program this country has ever seen, the biggest investment in defense and our industrial capacity that this country's ever seen, and the biggest and most effective climate competitiveness strategy that this country has ever seen.
Interesting he mentioned that. So we just listened to what Mark Carney announced there, what he just said. He mentioned capital investment. Obviously, we've got Brookfield and all his ties here. There's going to be some lucrative contracts given to Brookfield. He said they'll have the most ambitious spending on housing. They own Modular Group. Mark Carney owns stocks in Atco. Where is it? Here's Atco, Canadian Modular Housing Company. Also connected to Dawn Farrell, who he just hired because she has experience being on the board of Atco for the Major Projects Office. He announced we'll have the most ambitious spending on defense. And there he is, invested in Lockheed Martin. And he mentioned his green grift, most ambitious climate policy. Obviously, this all goes back to Stripe and basically anything on here with a green leaf. Look how many green leaves there are in here. We can't look at them all. There's too many. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Mark Carney joined Brookfield in August 2020. Justin Trudeau brought in Mark Carney as advisor to him in August of 2020. They planned this from the start. Then they rolled out all of this stuff here, clean emissions, National Corridors Fund, Green Infrastructure Fund, etc., invested in all these EVs and all this stuff so they could push this back to carbon credits. Everything he just announced, their big investments, all lines up with all of that.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has tried to deny the existence of continued hidden Liberal taxes on groceries. But Canada's leading food price expert, the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois, has said the exact opposite. He says, and I quote, the industrial carbon tax, the worst part is still there. He was referring to the fact that farmers pay the tax on the steel that goes into their their farm equipment, combines, tractors, and bins, and on their fertilizer. Is the Prime Minister really going to expect Canadians who can't pay their grocery bills to believe that the cost of the carbon tax on our farmers does not get passed on at the grocery shelf?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to quote independent research, Mr. Speaker, of the Canadian Climate Institute, which finds that the impact of the industrial carbon tax. Now, wait for it. The net impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices. It is on average around 0%.
Yeah, this guy cherry-picked data from the Canadian Climate Institute on the effect of carbon tax on food. This is unbelievable. Pierre can't even believe it. You see Carney's face there. Look at him having a nice laugh. I'm convinced Mark Carney has duper's delight. It's an emotional response, a micro expression, as you can see here on the National Library of Medicine. Gizzy Ekman in 1985 broadly defined duping delight as any positive, effective experience that occurs in anticipation of, during, or following a lie. Mark Carney always has this cheeky little smile. Sometimes they're bigger, they're smaller. We see this one right here. He can't control it. It's a micro expression you can't control. And that's why, in my opinion, you see him get that quirky little smile when he's clearly telling a lie. I often fact check this when he's telling those lies. And that's what micro expressions are. They're expressions you can't contain. They're subconscious. And then once you realize you're doing them, you catch them, then you bring them back down. That's what he does during his press conferences. I'm convinced this guy has duper's delight.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister expects us to believe government-funded so-called experts paid to push his agenda instead of believing in the obvious fact that when you tax the things that go into making food, you tax all who buy food. This is a Prime Minister who says he's a great expert, but he told CTV Nova Scotia that Canadians don't use steel anymore. Yeah. Does he not acknowledge, does he not know that there is steel in farm tractors, farm combines, farm bins, and other farm equipment? And does he not think, for God's sakes, that those costs get passed on to consumers?
Oh, he's not standing up. We got McKinnon. Pierre destroyed him so badly that Carney won't respond. This is unbelievable. Look at the outrage here. Look at Carney. Look at him down here. He won't stand up. He's nervous. You can see his hands here. Look at him fidgeting down here.
I was hoping to end as close to 3 as possible, but it might not be possible.
So Carney's got a lot of fidgety energy there because he knew he just got destroyed so badly. I mean, the fact he's not standing up, he's going to let McKinnon here run shield for him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The folks are feisty over there today. What I will say is we've been hearing all week, all month, since the beginning of this session about these imaginary taxes. These imaginary taxes in the brain of the leader of the opposition, but that no one else has seemed to manage. What I will tell him is that there will be a budget, there will be some numbers and some tables that he can read there where he will not find taxes on food. There is no tax on food. There will never be a tax on food.
This is more dirty tactics. They know full well that if they increase the price of everything that goes into producing food, then food will be more expensive.
Well, first, we're all disappointed to learn that Liberals think that Canadians who see grocery prices rising at records rates are just imagining things, Mr. Speaker. And further disappointed to see that this Prime Minister cannot stand in his place and address real questions about the cost of groceries for Canadians. It's not just the industrial carbon tax, Mr. Speaker. It is also the government's fuel standard, which, according to their own department, is going to increase the cost of fuel by 17 cents on the farmers and the truckers who bring us our food. Does he really expect consumers to believe that won't cost?
Yeah, so that fuel standard, the clean fuel standard, is essentially just another carbon tax. I've got it right here. I should put the dates on here, but this came in between 2022 and 2025. So in the last couple of years, they brought this one in. So they got rid of the carbon tax. They still have another carbon tax as well as the industrial carbon tax. There's way too many carbon taxes on citizens in Canada. Carney won't stand up for himself. He's too scared.
Speaker, and what's not imaginary is that Canadians know who they can In fact, time and again, they've looked at these Conservatives across the aisle vote against their very interests, whether it's things like the school nutrition program, whether it's things...
Oh, please. That was brought in so Justin Trudeau could take credit for school food programs provincially that already existed. She talks about who Canadians can trust. I literally have a Carney lie tracker right here. And I see a bunch of comments about this. All you have to do is go to www.moosechart.com and then you just scroll to the bottom right down here, and here's the Carney lie tracker. They are roughly done chronologically, so the oldest ones here misled about Brookfield's U.S. headquarters move, and there are sources for all of them here. I'm not pulling this out of my butt. Falsely claimed to help Jim Flaherty balance Canada's budget. Carney claimed he helped Paul Martin balance the budget, but Martin resigned as finance minister in 2002, 2 years before Carney joined the department in 2004. He had no involvement in eliminating the deficit. Yeah, Carney's a chronic liar.
Speaker, it is really disappointed this Prime Minister refuses to stand up and debate the real cost of his taxes on Canadian food consumers. It's the same thing with the auto sector. He promised that he would negotiate a win. He promised to get a rapid deal. Still no win, still no deal. Elbows gone missing, and so are the jobs. Today we saw Cpac au Québec. Il y a 300.
In Quebec, 300 jobs lost at Cpac.
That it was Ingersoll, the Cami plant, and before that the GM plant in Oshawa. Is the Prime Minister selling out the auto sector in his attempt to back down to the U.S. president?
Yeah.
Oh, Carney's finally standing up.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there's no I in team, but apparently there's an I in Conservative.
Oh!
Team in Conservative. There's a team on these benches. This government is in a position with the best accord with the Americans. We have the lowest tariff on the auto sector. Mr. Speaker, there's no I in team, but there is an I in Conservative. There is a team, and there is a team in Liberal that can answer these questions. And this is what the Liberal team has accomplished. We have the best deal with the Americans of any country. We have the lowest tariff on our...
That is deceptive. He knows full well he didn't get that deal. That's a CUSMA agreement that was in beforehand. Once again, this guy's a chronic liar.
Automobiles and trucks of any country, but we are not satisfied. That is why we are negotiating a new accord on steel, on aluminum, on energy, and on auto.
Honourable Leader.
Yeah, I don't think the forestry industry is feeling too good right now. I don't think the canola industry, the seafood industries, they're not feeling too good after that display. He's throwing all these other industries under the bus, and the only one he's trying to save here is the steel industry. Is that because his buddy here, Dennis Turcotte, managing partner at Brookfield's private equity group, possibly has shares in Algoma Steel, considering he was the president and chief executive officer from 2002 to 2008? Is that why steel is getting prioritized?
The question was about jobs, and he responds with a spelling bee, Mr. Speaker. This is the guy who's supposed to negotiate a win for us, a guy who said he'd have a deal by July 21st. He's the guy who said he's had his elbows up, and since that time, his elbows have gone missing, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian people need those jobs. He promised he would protect those jobs. Will he stand up today, look the auto workers in Ontario and Quebec in the eye, and tell them why he abandoned them and sold them out?
The Honourable Minister.
No, he's done again. He's out.
Minister responsible for...
We got McKinnon again. Oh no, we got LeBlanc.
Our government has no difficulty looking at the hardworking women and men who work in our auto industry and in industries across the country to say that we're fighting for their jobs. We're standing up to the Americans for unjustified tariffs. We're negotiating what we think will be agreements that will be in the best interest of Canadian workers and the Canadian economy. And what we're also doing at the same time, Mr. Speaker, is taking steps to support those very industries in Canada. That's what we were elected to do. That's what the Prime Minister's doing with everybody on this side of the House.
Just pathetic. He's got both these goons running shield for him.
That was not what this Prime Minister promised. He promised that he would negotiate a win. He promised that he would have a deal by July 21st. Neither of those things happened. He went to the auto sector and told the workers that not only would he protect their jobs, but there would be an all-in-Canada supply chain that is being dismantled right before our eyes. And it's not just his trade negotiating failures It's his EV mandate, which has slammed the brakes on any investment in auto manufacturing in this country. If the Prime Minister take personal responsibility for this and announce today an end to the EV mandate so we can get our workers back to jobs.
When it comes to the auto workers, they know that we have their back and that we will fight for every single job in this country in the auto sector.
She is completely useless. It's quite shocking this dimwit is able to make it to among the top jobs in Parliament.
You know why? Because the Canadian automakers and the Canadian auto workers are actually the best in the world, and therefore we will make sure that Stellantis is held to account. We are meeting with GM tomorrow in Ottawa, bringing back a model to the plant in Ingersoll, and we will be there also for the employees at Cpac in Sainte-Thérèse.
They're not doing nothing.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's failures and capitulations are not just vis-a-vis the United States. He promised he would stand up for Western Canadian farmers, but canola tariffs have now more than doubled. The Prime Minister, in response to this, has given the communist regime in China the billion-dollar taxpayer-funded loans so that we can buy Chinese-made ships. And now he's announced that he's further conceded by removing tariffs on Chinese-made steel. Why is it that in addition to selling out the auto workers, he sold out our farmers and rewarded foreign dictatorships that target them with tariffs?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah, Pierre's swinging today. He's got everything lined up here. And once again, Carney's not going to answer this.
We are in a volatile global economy. We are defending our trade interests. We are expanding into new markets. And we are working alongside our farmers in every aspect. Thank you.
Okay. What happened to Farmer Joe? What was that guy's name? Former Liberal in this position? He's gone.